and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of the Sunday Sauce, episode number 12. My word, this screen got immensely more handsome this week. I'm Tyler Adelle alongside Andrew Mucaria, and with our guest from the Eastern Observer's own Primetime Rundown, Joey Jarzynka. Joe, how you doing today?
Tyler, thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure and happy to be back here with you guys to talk some hockey since we're only about a week out. Crazy stuff going on here.
Yeah, it's we got a lot going on preseason, all these roster cuts coming. We're a week away from the Global Series. We're really a week away from the start of the season. Andrew, how you doing today? Hate your jersey.
I'm offended. I'm doing pretty good. I'll be better if the Mets can win a game tonight, but we're good. We're chilling.
In all fairness for you, I think we can all agree here. When New York does well, we all do well. So I'm pulling for you.
Oh, thank you.
You know who else I'm pulling for? I'm pulling for this Friday night, the Primetime Rundown, to have a great show. Summer is in the rearview mirror, and that means the Primetime Rundown is back in its usual slot as Joey Jarzynka, Ian Schrei, and Mike Szabo return to Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with everything you need to know in the sports world right here on the Eastern Observer. And if you can't catch them live, you can always catch them again on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts, along with other streaming platforms. And we also can't do this without our friends at the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Join the crew at the Essential Wrestling Podcast as they bring to you a full recap of the previous week in wrestling. Our guys Al Carl, John Smith, John DeConnie, and Gary Mahaffey break it all down for you on Tuesday, October 4th, beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Eastern Observer. Same thing, guys. If you can't catch them live, you catch them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Odyssey. Also sponsored by Milk. Anyway,
Milk.
We're always going to be sponsored by Milk, unless the boss has something to say about it. Sponsored by Milk. All right. We don't got a ton going on this week. We're going to go through a couple of the bigger moves that have happened, and then we're going to go through each one of our individual standings breakdowns. And Joe, I have a bone to pick with you when we get to the Pacific Division. But let's get started. The Panthers and goaltender Spencer Knight agreed to a 3-year, $13.5 million contract, sitting on a $4.5 million AAV. Backup contract, or are they eventually going to transition him into a starting role? Andrew, start you.
I mean, they have Bob signed through, I think, 2026.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I wouldn't say a full backup role, more of an, 1A, 1B type of situation. The split's going to be closer to 50-50, but I would not consider him a starter for that team anytime soon unless something happens to Bob.
Yeah, I could see if the trade opportunity came, they could possibly ship Bob. It's going to be very hard to find someone who's going to be willing to take that $10 million cap, but obviously Spencer Knight has proven that whether it be in Florida or on another NHL club, he will be a starter eventually. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, we heard in the offseason about what Florida really thought of Sergei Bobrovsky, and there's no doubt that that they love this kid. They loved this kid when Coach Quenneville was still the head coach there, and what he was able to bring not only some high-powered goaltending, but there was just that other something else that he brought to that Florida Panthers team. And when you look at some of the the salary cap numbers right now, you say to yourself, this is an absolute steal for this Florida Panthers team. Why? Because both goaltenders that are under contract for Florida, their contracts both expire in 2026-27. And when that does come to, or rather 2025-26, now Spencer Knight will be an RFA afterwards. And there was some talk that Florida wanted to move away from Bobrovsky. Why? Because they still have about $7 million in dead cap this season. But really last season, we got a chance to see some of the shortcomings from Bob at times. And that's also why that I still, and obviously that's not really a question that you asked, but you have to lean on a goaltender. And I don't know if Bobrovsky in the latter part of his career is one that this team can lean on, especially when they're in win now mode. We saw last season 54 starts, 267 goals against average. And in the playoffs, he really did not look good. I think he had close to a 3 goals against. Really, really tough showing for him. And, really, listen, everybody makes it to the playoffs in terms of, everybody wants to make it to the playoffs. And that's really where, you make your buck. And here, the $10 million showing from Sergei Bobrovsky was pretty much minus $10 million. It did not look good. It looked really poor. And I think that this Florida team and general manager Bill Zito, they are moving forward and moving away from Bobrovsky. And, I think with $10 million with that cap hit, there's not a lot that they could do. Exactly what Andrew said. He will not be a starter for a while, but you never know. There is definitely a possibility that this man could potentially overtake Bobrovsky in the next, I would say, 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things also when you think about it from the Florida perspective. The kid obviously is going to be ready as a starting goalie sooner rather than later. You can almost argue he's ready now. When the time comes, and I guess you could say if Spencer Knight feels like it's either time for him to go and move on, or I know players nowadays love to get their agents involved in seeking out trades. Is this something where if Florida waits too long to pull the trigger, do you think they're going to end up losing Spencer Knight no matter what? No,
definitely not. Andrew, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to take your spotlight.
That's okay. He's got it.
No, I have no spotlight in my life. I do want to add, in general, I think in the next couple of years, not right away, but we're going to eventually see in maybe 2-3 years a very sharp decline of the Panthers in general. So I see a lot of trades coming in their future. Spencer Knight not being one of them. I think he stays with the club long term. But a lot of those other guys are going to see traded. But I don't see Spencer Knight going anywhere.
Yeah, I think Spencer Knight. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
See, I don't think that there will be a sharp decline. I think what we're going to see is that a lot of these contracts are going to expire, and I don't think that we're going to see, a lot of the. I don't think that they're going to blow it up. There's no way that they're going to, especially from what we're going to see in the next 2 to 3 years, which 2025, 26, as we did say. Elliot Friedman did tweet that the salary cap is expected to be, keyword is expected to be, about around $92 million. So this team's going to have a lot of space to work with. And I think right now with what Bill Zito is trying to build here, he's trying to build obviously around the Kachucks of the world and the Barkovs of the world. And now he's also including Spencer Knight in that equation. I don't know if they're going to be on a sharp decline, but I simply think that they're going to be this regular season team that simply cannot go anywhere in the playoffs. That's where I think that they're going to go. I don't think that they're going to be the old Florida Panthers that they once were, where they only attracted maybe 3 fans. I mean, hey, listen, they only attract now 5, but still, that's an improvement from many years ago and prior to their uniform change.
To add to your point, I'm going to agree with you and say that Florida is not going to go on as steep of a decline as I think Andrew probably assumes they're going to. You have to remember, especially when you go into an era where we're expecting the salary cap, keyword expecting, per Elliot Friedman, the salary cap to touch almost $92 million, which is something you can almost argue we weren't going to see until into the 2030s at least. And that kind of was, dare I say, a bombshell, because you talk about the cap going up in $1 million increments in the next few years, and then all of a sudden it's going to make a $7 million jump after the 2024 season. Point being, Florida and Tampa included in this also, they don't have problems attracting people there just due to the income tax situation there themselves. Florida's never not going to be able to attract a name or be in the running for a name. Cycle back a few years ago with Artemi Panarin when they had the trifecta of the Islanders, Rangers, and Panthers. Everybody assumed, he might go to Florida with the income tax, and Bob is going there. Obviously, wasn't the case, but Florida's name is always going to be floating around when it comes to those big names. Yeah. Tampa as well. Tampa might be a little bit more difficult, obviously, with all of the 8-year deals they just handed out. But yeah, I don't think Florida is going to suffer as much as people would probably think. I think Barkov is probably somebody they're going to keep around as long as they physically can. Spencer Knight is the goalie of their future. You could almost really argue that Ekblad is still the defenseman of the future for them, even though he's been in the league 6 years now. But he's 6 years in the league. He's not, I believe he's turning 27 during this next season. So he's still, depending on how you look at sports, you could argue he's still yet to even enter his prime. So there's plenty of upside for their team. Moving forward, we also have Canadians signing goaltender Jake Allen to a 2-year, $7.7 million contract with a 3.85 AAV. Pretty key point in helping the St. Louis Blues win the 2019 Stanley Cup. Kind of wasn't around too much last year. Wasn't really the Jake Allen that everybody remembers. But I think this is a good signing for the Canadians. I think it solidifies them to have a number one for obviously at least 2 years. You know that you don't have, I don't like to say liability, but you don't have a liability in net anymore where a dump in from the blue line is you have to actually worry about that going in. I like this move for the Canadians. I think the Canadians, and I know we're going to get to it later, I think they're going to be a better team this year than people really want to give them credit for. And I think this signing helps them with that. Joe, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think that this signing is more on the lines of just really having, stability in net. This team is all over the place. This team is in full rebuild. This team is not in a retool. Granted, from what we want to hear from Jeff Gorton, from the president of hockey operations, as well as the general manager and Ken Hughes, where they've come out publicly and said that this is more of a retool. No, you look at what you're seeing here and you look at the salary cap issue and you're seeing right now that, granted, they do have nearly $26 million on the IR. They were able to get Sean Monahan pretty much for nothing from Calgary. They still have Jonathan Drouin on the books, which again, we have no idea what's going to happen to him. Keep in mind also they grabbed Evgeny Dodonov pretty much for nothing. So I think what we're going to see here, a lot of these players and a lot of these guys with just 1 year term, they are going to be activated as soon as they're ready. And there's going to be a lot of issues in terms of salaries, in terms of whatever the case is. This team, I don't believe, will compete as hard as a lot of people are thinking. And to go, we'll obviously talk about our Calgary bet later on in the broadcast. But which I'd love to hear Andrew's response on this. But going back to the main point though with Montreal though, I think that their defense still is going to be force to be reckoned with. We got a chance to see what Mike Matheson has been able to do. He's really fast. He's really a speedster. And a lot of people have said, why did Pittsburgh pretty much give him up for an aging defenseman in Jeff Petrie and plus a few others? But Mike Matheson still has it, but it's just a matter of how can Nick Suzuki handle the spotlight? How can really everything come together in Montreal? I think that this team is probably about 2 years away from, or maybe, you know what? I'll go down one. I'll say a year away from really getting things together. And Andrew can tell you this as a Rangers fan. What Jeff Gorton has been able to do, not only with the Rangers and speeding up that rebuild or retool, he's going to do the exact same thing with this Montreal Canadiens team. And right now, what we're seeing, what I'm seeing from this Montreal Canadiens team, how they are beginning to get, they traded away the number 13 pick to the, or traded the 13 pick. No, they acquired the 13th overall pick from the Islanders for Alex Romanov, and then they traded that pick away to Chicago for Kirby Dach. Listen, they need center help. They've always needed center help for as long as I can remember, for as long as they were really in the Eastern Conference Final against the Rangers. It simply did not work out well for them. They've got a long road to go, but this is a team that I expect to be on a better track or a faster track than Ottawa was a few years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the Montreal Canadiens, obviously it goes with that saying, but some names that you didn't mention in all of their stuff, they still have their homegrown talent in Cole Caufield, Nick Suzuki, their newest captain, Josh Anderson, who had a great year a couple years back. I hate to try and discredit them and say they're still not going to perform. They definitely still need to build experience. They need to learn how to play as a team. for an 82-game stretch. But most importantly, obviously, in all sports, I think all of our youth coaches and little league coaches have all told us at some point they also need to learn how to lose and how to rebound from that.
And they're gonna get their fair share of. They're gonna
probably learn how to lose at least 50 times. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But when you look at their center depth, like you said, it really, you have Suzuki, Kirby Dach, and then it really falls off after there. I mean, Christian Dvorak is probably, I would go with an ideal third line center. That's probably exactly who you want. But after that, it's their fourth line's got nothing. Their wings are just, in reality, just very unstable. Although they have talent through their wings with Jonathan Duran, Mike Hoffman. These are all guys that have been having quite an injury history in the last few years.
Yeah.
Andrew, what do you think?
I mean, I think Joey summed it up pretty well. You're going to see it's basically like the Rangers retool, just way more drastic. I think there's still, like Joey said, a year. I'm leaning more towards 2 years away from being a real powerhouse. The issues, like we said, is their center depth, and they have some signings next year. They're going to end up having the cap room. It's going to be fine, but they're in this X factor period where it's like, hey, what is Nick Suzuki going to do now? What is Cole Caufield going to do now? Are they superstars? In my opinion, 100%. But this is the year and next year when we will find out. If all goes well, like 80% of the Rangers retool did, you're going to see them be an absolute powerhouse in about 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, you also talk about, really quickly, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you also talk about Cole Caufield, is he a superstar or not? You remember he almost did a violent 180 almost overnight once everything was cleaned house in the middle of the season with a new coach, a new GM. I think that without question, like you said, he's absolutely a superstar, but now he's been given a couple extra tools. Joe, going back really quick to your center depth, that totally overshadowed Sean Monahan.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar, it's kind of similar to, I guess if you want to compare it to anything else in sports, you kind of compare it to, like you said, the Rangers. It's just players have been given tools. Do something with it now. Let's see what you got. And I think the next couple of years, like we said, are going to be a lot of you got to your RFA to prove it, and then we're going to have to make a decision.
Well, the problem also is here with Cole Caufield is that now he's going to be looking at a few other signings that may sound quite familiar to you. We keep in mind about Josh Norris. We keep in mind about Tim Stützle as well. Now, those two guys got massive extensions. Now, listen, this is what I've said, and I said this to Tyler off camera a few times. I've said that I think what you saw was Pierre Dorion. He was very cocky in terms of the way that they got the rebuild going, right? And how they proceeded with it, right? Things looked really good for them. They accumulated the draft picks. They traded away Erik Karlsson. We remember that long time ago. They won that deal, by the way, which I'll come out publicly and say they won that deal. I said it the moment that the trade was done. They were going to win it. And 5 years later, here we are. They've won it. The next thing also is that you've got Tim Stützle, who still has one final year left on the contract. He's now paid almost $8.5 million. Josh Norris now was just given a massive extension, 8 years. Now, I understand that they're trying to build around those two guys, right? So what Dorion did, he showed his cards here, right? So now Caufield, you never know. Let's say, for instance, he bets on himself, right? Because I guarantee you that Gorton and Ken Hughes, they're definitely talking to that Caufield camp, trying to get a deal done. Do we think it's going to be one of those massive deals like a Norris or Stützle, or will it be a bridge deal? Keep in mind, we're getting out of that COVID era where the bridge deals really are coming into play. So now he's going to be looking at those two guys in addition to what Suzuki got as well. This is going to be a very, very, very tough season for Cole Caufield because a lot of eyes are on him. And Andrew said it perfectly. Is he a superstar? And playing in Montreal, we know how hard it is. Ask Max Pacioretty. His career pretty much went downhill after that. And, it's so tough. And I'm not saying that Cole Caufield has those traits, but he's looking for a payday. And with the cap we are hearing going up and up and up, he is one person that we need to keep an eye out for on getting these longer deals.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about, like we said before, with the salary cap potentially reaching that $92 million mark in a few years, will he take a bridge to then to get his payday? Is he going to force Montreal's hand and say, pay me now, or I got to go? It's one of those things where it makes it, like you said, very, very tough.
Yeah, and also just to go back to what you said about Sean Monahan too. Sean Monahan, Paul Byron, Jonathan Drouin. If the latter two even play, Paul Byron and Drouin, I don't expect those two to play. They're going to be on that long-term injured reserve. But Sean Monahan really is Sean Monahan and Evgeny Dadonov. Those two are going to be the key pieces that I can almost guarantee you that Montreal will be flipping at the trade deadline, and those two will definitely be in the top tier, like in the top 5. Let's go top 10. Let's be nice there. Top 10 in terms of the want from other teams.
No question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving forward, the Carolina Hurricanes today signed defenseman Calvin DeHaan off of his PTO to a 1-year, $850,000 contract. Not much to talk about here. It's probably going to be a veteran 7th D-man move, considering Carolina is almost stacked at every position. Little bit of bias here. Joe, I know you and I had Calvin DeHaan with the Islanders for a while. I happen to like him. I think it's a good move for Carolina. I think he's going to be able to bring a little bit of a leadership role to the locker room.
Yeah, he's a great personality. And we know that just by meeting him multiple times. He's generally a great person. He's great on the ice. He's great with his teammates. We know that. But that number 6 spot is going to be for Dylan Coughlin that they got in the San Jose trade with Brent Burns as well. Calvin DeHaan is just going to be that 7th, that 7th D man, and it's going to be tough too. And keep in mind also, we also have to realize is that this signing also has, implications too for Jake Gardiner, because we remember just a few months ago, they came out publicly. Jake Gardiner and his camp came out and said that he is fully healthy, ready to go. Now that would put the Hurricanes in a crucial spot because they're already over the salary cap, and they pretty much have moved on without him. So now with this DeHaan signing, I'm really intrigued to see what happens now with Gardiner, because I thought that he was actually going to be that 7th man scratch. And, granted of him being, having 1 year left to $4 million, he would either be buried to the Charlotte Checkers, or potentially he would be traded with retained salary. I don't expect it to happen. I would expect him to be buried, but here, this is just, again, another depth move. Calvin DeHaan, great locker room guy, and that's exactly what this Hurricanes team needs after failing and falling flat on their face in the playoffs the last 2 years.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Andrew, anything to add?
No, that was perfect. It's boring. Whatever. Good job. Good for him.
Moving forward, a little preseason action with the Ducks this week. Trevor Zegras left a game early after a fairly violent-ish hit by preseason standards, at least. I'm going to play the clip. Pardon the quality. YouTube doesn't seem to like to cooperate anymore.
We saw Anthony Stolarz last night in San Jose. Oh, what a hit on Zegras. What a hit.
So, that being said, there's not a ton of room for that, in my opinion, in the preseason. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
I don't see anything you should be laughing at.
Just some good old vitamin D.
Like I said, we were going to have a lot of fun with that one this year. Look, in the preseason, I understand that there's guys who are trying to crack rosters, make it out of camp, make it to the bigs. In a way, you can almost say that Zegras has put this target on himself, in a sense that all of that wizardry, that's the best word to use, that he pulled off last season with his Michigan-style goals and just the way he moves the puck. Players are going to pay attention to that now, and they're going to eliminate it every chance they can. So I'm okay with the hit, but I'm not for the sake of it being the preseason. Andrew?
I was going to say the exact same thing. During the regular season, cool, whatever. I get it. It's preseason. That's Bush League. Like, it's complete Bush League.
Yeah, it was uncalled for.
What also bothers me, though, is not a single teammate, at least in the video, went after the guy.
So in the longer extended version, there is actually a fight afterward.
Okay, good.
I could only get the 7-second clip. Everybody else had already taken the video and made their own edit for it, and I didn't want to use their audio.
Fair enough.
Because we don't pay royalties here. Joe, your thoughts on the hit?
Well, this is actually the first that I'm seeing of the hit, so I'll go with the first 7 seconds of what I saw. From what I saw is that the skater went the other way. It looked as if that, again, this is just the 7 seconds that I saw. It looked like it was a hit that I don't know if Zegras saw him right in that area. I don't know if that was the case. Can we actually play that one more time? I kind of want to just see that one more time just so we can.
I can do anything for you, Joe.
There we go.
Anthony Stolarz last night in San Jose. Oh, what a hit on Zegras. What a hit.
Yeah, So now to clarify again, I'm not a fan of that just because from what you did see, the skater did turn his body a little bit. It looked as if that, again, that's definitely not a hit that I'd like to see in preseason. That's not a hit that I'd really like to see, especially towards the upper part of the area, the way that he went with the body going upward. Again, these are hits that, welcome to the NHL. This is what you're going to get. Now, Zegras definitely did not bring it upon himself. We can't say that. I think just his talent is what has brought it on him. This is, unfortunately, if he wanted to be a bad player and a fourth line guy, sure, then go ahead. Then you're not going to get all of that attention. But hey, listen, this is who he is. He is the face of the Anaheim Ducks, and he will be at some point one of the 5 faces of the NHL. In give it, I would say 3 years, he will be up there. This kid is definitely something. Something special. Hell, he's already on the cover of NHL 23. Pretty good stuff there. But yeah, this hit I'm not really a fan of. Be better, St. Louis Blues. Really, just be better, everybody. Those hits not cool in preseason, especially.
Yeah, I mean, you at least have to be better until the regular season starts.
Right.
When you talk about that hit. When I say, like, piggybacking off of what your statement, when I say that he's going to bring those hits on himself, I mean more as in players are going to take more notice. And if they get that open lane to throw the body instead of letting him do some 360 double backflip X Games type nonsense,
sure,
they're going to take that shot. I mean, you saw last year towards the end of the year with Jay Beagle going after Troy Terry, teams were getting sick of it very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what you see there also in what he's able to do, and some of these hits too, again, a massive target is on his head, is on his back.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning for Trevor Zegras. Again, he played this past year still behind a hobbling Ryan Getzlaf, a very older Ryan Getzlaf, but the Ducks were pretty much a non-factor, and he was still young. The team was a non-factor. A lot of guys still knew of Zegras. They knew what he was capable of. They know about Jamie Drysdale, what he's going to bring on the blue line. But again, now all eyes are on him. All eyes are on him, and the Ducks know it too. They changed his number 2 to number 11. So this is a big deal. This is a very big deal for the Ducks franchise and for him too.
Oh yeah, no. I think he's going to be, like you said, a face within the next 5 years, 3 years. I would honestly even go sooner. It's the writing is on the wall. He's a very special talent. You don't get many like him.
Yep.
Just happy I waited to buy his jersey.
What's that?
Said I'm happy I waited to buy his jersey.
Yeah. Now otherwise you'd have to cut off some of that for.
Exactly.
That's right.
Moving forward, Canada lifting their vaccine mandates, making it in the athletic world a tad bit easier on players throughout all 4 of the major sports. And Maple Leafs coach Sheldon Keefe says Mitch Marner could be used as a defenseman this season. First of all, second of all, what is the problem with trying to go, get a natural defenseman? Like, food for thought. I understand that obviously the first thing that comes to everybody's mind becomes the salary cap. But teams obviously always find ways to work around it. So with a team that obviously the defense, up until Jack Campbell got there, goaltending was kind of a little bit of a question mark. Why would Sheldon Keefe believe Mitch Marner playing defense is a solution for them rather than going out and trading for a guy like Brent Burns? Granted, he's up there in age, I understand, and the money is not friendly, but you have a natural defenseman who actually goes the other way and plays the wing. I can't really wrap my head around this one. I think it's boneheaded to try to put a guy who's capable of 30 goals on the blue line, where he's going to have probably a lot of assists, don't get me wrong, but you're taking a lot of scoring production over there, especially when you see players. I don't know. It's an offensive juggernaut. I understand why they believe they can make that kind of a sacrifice for a couple games and test the waters. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous.
No, I'll have to disagree there. I don't think it's ludicrous. I think it just shows how little production that the defensive core for this Maple Leafs team is. It just shows that they are desperate. They are in win now mode and they have no other choice. This is the job. This is literally the year that a make or break year for Kyle Dubas and for Sheldon Keefe. If they don't get things fixed, if they don't get anything together, if they do not win a playoff round, it's over. It's actually over. Keefe's job is done. Dubas's job is done. And I would not be surprised, I'll be honest with you, and this is a very bold prediction. Brendan Shanahan, granted, he is the one that had the whole deal with Lou Lamoriello about him being the general manager for 3 years, and then it would be the transition over to Dubas. Okay, this is the problem that I have here. Dubas was the one to sign Tavares to that massive deal, right? He wanted to come home. He's making $11 million. Well, guess what? That screwed them over in terms of defense, because even before Tavares got there, they couldn't play defense. And now it's even worse. You're getting a chance to see what Mark Giordano can do. He's still got it here and there. Granted, he took a massive discount. He was making $6 or $7 million Calgary, and then when he was selected in Seattle, yeah, that's great. But the problem now is that he's getting older. TJ Brody is not the player that he once was when he was in Calgary as well. And then you also have a player like Justin Holl too, who really, he's another right-handed defenseman, simply is more on the offensive side of things. He's also 30. Jake Muzzin is not the Los Angeles King defenseman that he once was. He still has another $5.625 million. He was brought in for the offense. This team is all about offense. So what do you have to do? You have to sacrifice one of your wings in order to play defense, because you cannot win also with your blue line, and even Morgan Riley too. Listen, Morgan Riley, I think, is fantastic on both sides, but he is also an offensive defenseman. No one really thinks about that, right? We're not going to go into the plus-minus stats because that's all that all means nothing. But it also shows the fact, I think, of the faith that they also have in their goaltenders as well. Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, they do not have the faith in this blue line as well as the goaltenders. They say they do, but what you're seeing here, you're seeing a desperation move that is here to save jobs at this point. I don't even care about the money. They are $3 million over the cap. Keep in mind too, they're going to have to make moves. They're going to have to make moves in order to get to when Tavares comes back from that severe oblique injury. That's something else too. They've got a lot of work to do, and they have no choice but to try him out on the right side of defense.
Yeah, isn't it poetic how it's been the biggest issue for the Maple Leafs for as long as I could breathe was defense, and now they're trying to solve defense with a forward. It is, the Maple Leafs are on red alert. They don't win this year, they're screwed. They have 7 UFAs and 2 RFAs after this year. A couple of those UFAs are going to get big pay raises, and there's no big contracts coming off.
Nope. There you go.
They have to win, or like you said, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, you figure that window of opportunity really should be closing as early as this year. It should they not be able to pull it together. I mean, look, you're locked into Tavares for 3 more years after this year, or I believe 2 more years after this year.
No,
You're
2.
What's that?
2 after this year.
2 after this year, right? This would be the 3rd year.
Yes.
You're locked in with him. You're gonna have to make a decision on Austin Matthews. Obviously, you don't want to let him leave for nothing, but obviously, some people feel like he was spited and essentially screwed out of the captaincy, and it was just given to the hometown boy.
He was.
He absolutely was. And I'll be honest with you, if you want to talk about homecomings, and the Arizona Coyotes weren't playing in a middle school, probably be talking.
Yeah, 100% agreed.
Mitch Marner is another one who I believe his 5-year contract is coming to a close very soon.
Same time as Tavares.
William Nylander, his contract comes to a close within the next 2 or 3 years. You're talking a decent chunk of your core is going to go, and especially, which we're going to get to next with the salary cap, Austin Matthews is not going to be cheap. He could have a contract, in my opinion, after the last few seasons, he could easily touch 15 to 16 million AAV on his contract.
That all depends on where the cap is standing at that point.
Yes, if the cap goes to that 92 million in 25-26, conveniently enough when he's going to be available the year before, you can adjust that. I believe he could command that contract, at least from somebody else. He can command it from the Maple Leafs, doesn't mean they can afford to pay.
No.
And look, let's be honest. There's going to be, we can treat this as our transition into this salary cap talk. You're going to have all 32 teams are coming in with the same advantage. Everybody's going to have essentially the same amount of cap space when the time comes. Obviously, there's going to be teams that are playing just above the cap floor, because some are going to have more than others. Everybody's going to have a boatload of cash to play with in 25-26 should this go through. Realistically speaking, Austin Matthews is going to be one of those players in 25-26 that's going to have 32 options.
Yeah.
It's going to be very hard to retain a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as we transition into the salary cap, as we've said multiple times through the show already, Elliot Friedman reported that the salary cap for the 2025-2026 NHL season could touch the $92 million mark. As we said, all 32 teams are going to immensely benefit from this. And it's great for the game. Obviously, the NHL players are, of the 4 major sports, they have the lowest salaries, the lowest contracts. On a personal note, it is nice to see our athletes get paid. You know, we all go to games, we watch games virtually, religiously. It's nice to see that some of the love is being spread this way. When you talk about teams that benefit, obviously, it goes without saying, everybody benefits from it. But give me 3 teams right now, each of you, give me 3 teams that are going to benefit probably the most, and what 3 teams are really going to eat it from this. In my opinion, Toronto's going to eat it because, as we said, they're going to have next to no room to do anything. I think a team like Washington is going to significantly benefit from this because you're going to have Ovechkin coming off the books around that time. You're going to have Nick Backstrom, who's probably going to be getting ready to retire. You might get a couple more years out of Oshie. You talk about the Capitals' middle 6 forward unit. It's a lot of their younger core with Connor McMichael. That's a team that could almost essentially rebuild their team in a summer and really never skip a beat. Another team I think is really going to benefit from this is Buffalo. Buffalo is obviously a place that people want to play. A guy like Taylor Hall, even on the 1-year contract, you don't just sign in Buffalo to go play. Taylor Hall could have commanded a lot of money on that open market. He chose to go to Buffalo even for a year. Granted, he was still dealt. It was a 56-game season. It is a destination for hockey. I think that Buffalo is another team that's going to immensely benefit from this.
I want to interrupt you there for a second where you brought up about Taylor Hall because I don't think he wanted to go to Buffalo.
You don't believe so?
His market completely dried up. That's the problem because he commanded way too much money, and Buffalo was the only team with salary cap room that was able to give him that $8 million. That's the problem. Because I think he would have definitely taken another deal, but what he wanted was that massive payday. Not a single player, not a single team was willing to give it to him. So the only team that was willing to basically dangle this blank check in front of him were the Buffalo Sabres. Why? Because he had an opportunity to show himself next to Jeff Skinner. He did exactly that. He got dealt to Boston. And guess what? Look where they are now. He's screwed. Boston is screwed as well.
I can see that side of the argument. I just don't. I feel as if you think about Taylor Hall's contract. He signed that 1 year, $8 million deal with the Buffalo Sabres.
Mm-hmm.
The following season, he signs I believe, a 4-year deal for much less than $8 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure his stock crashes. He's got to go to Buffalo now. He doesn't have a choice. Let's say. So what would have stopped him from just going to Buffalo and saying, "Look, I'll take the money discount," or Boston rather, "Look, I'll take the money discount. Let's do it now."
Because he knew that if he were to go to Buffalo, chances were very high that he would get traded to a contender and potentially win the Stanley Cup. He is not. He wants to win. He wants to win, and he wanted a room that would be really good for him. And he got a chance to obviously get, to show what he was able to do, show his leadership, which we know is really pretty much non-existent. He's just a player. That's exactly what he is. He's a player. He performs on the ice and he goes home. That's all he does, right? So what he was able to do, he literally rolled the dice because his market had dried up at the time. We heard a lot of rumors that it would potentially, New Jersey was off the table. We heard potentially a reunion with Edmonton at the time. They had Peter Chiarelli as their general manager at the time, so we knew how that would work. They would have probably given him, $100 million just because he doesn't know how to figure out the salary cap. The bottom line was that he rolled the dice, and for him there, right, he was able to cash in because he wanted a longer term deal. And I personally did not believe, guys, that Taylor Hall, when he was traded to Boston, he was going to stay there. And you heard a lot of positive things from the Boston side and even from Taylor Hall's side, that everything clicked together, everything connected together like a puzzle. And no one thought that. Devils fans, our old co-host of the Primetime Rundown, Rob DeLuca, he could tell you, I don't think a lot of New Jersey Devils fans thought that because they know what kind of player he was. Granted, he did wear the A for a little bit in New Jersey, but who really was, there was no one else who could do it. He came in, he showed what he was able to do offensively. He did it all, but there were a lot of talk and chat. There was a lot of talk and chatter that it was up here. That was a big reason why he did not get the contract that he commanded and his team commanded. That's why Buffalo said, hell, screw it. Let's give him the 1-year deal. We'll get some picks and potential players out of it. And they did.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely argue that Buffalo really, at the end of the day, had the last laugh because they turned $8 million into considerable future assets.
Yeah, they did.
Buffalo definitely got the last laugh. Obviously, really quickly, Andrew, before I go to you, two other teams that I think go without saying that they're going to benefit from the potential salary cap raise would obviously be the two Florida teams. They have no income tax down there as is, and you're going to give them more money to have income tax free. It's a no-brainer. Tampa's going to be able to command as well as Florida, as we referenced before. Andrew, who's going to significantly benefit from this salary cap raise?
I'm looking at some teams that have a good amount of their core signed long-term already, and now they're going to have a lot more room to sign new guys. Being unbiased as I can, but one is the Rangers. They have a good chunk of their core signed for a long time. They're going to have to re-sign Alexis Lafreniere soon and Capo Caco. Who knows what's going to happen in 2-3 years? They're going to have more room to add to that. I could also see it working out for both the Senators and the Red Wings. The Senators for a similar reason as the Rangers. The Red Wings are not – they have to re-sign a lot of guys soon. But again, it kind of in the same situation. Down the road, if some things don't pan out or some things do pan out, they now have more room to work with those young guys.
Yeah, I don't believe there's too much bias when you say the Rangers are going to benefit from this because for similar reasons, the Islanders are going to benefit from this too. We both have goaltenders in Igor Shesterkin and Ilya Sorokin who are inevitably going to get a tremendous check eventually. Mm-hmm. A lot of that money can go to both of those individuals. Another team right now struggling in the money department, unless they can turn something around before 2025, the Vegas Golden Knights are going to significantly reap the benefits out of this raise. They are. I'm pretty sure if I looked at their payroll right now, they are $100 million over the cap.
They're a disaster.
Absurd.
Yeah.
I'm going to even fact check it. Somehow Montreal is above them. They are $10,200,000 over the cap. You have some guys on the injured reserve in Nolan Patrick, Nick Hague, the long-term IR with Shea Weber's contract, Robin Leonard, and this draft for the Vegas Golden Knights at the time was a great draft. They went for the NHL's jugular and were 3 games away from succeeding. The Jack Eichel deal, it's Jack Eichel. When he's healthy, he's top 5, top 10 in the league. I don't think anybody here would probably argue that. Mark Stone for $9.5 million. That's not going to be too pretty. William Karlsson again at almost $6 million. Not a good look. The Vegas Golden Knights. Actually, it's crazy. Vegas Golden Knights. Listen to this. If the salary cap went to $92 million today, they would still be $1 million over the cap. I didn't even explain that.
You don't?
So I want to interject here about Vegas because when we had on the Primetime Rundown, we had our good friend from the fourth period in SiriusXM, Dennis Bernstein, on with us. I had asked him, I had said flat out, and this is something that Tyler and I have been speaking about for as long as time as they've been, here, right? And once the Vegas Golden Knights made the Stanley Cup final, this team thought that they were invincible, right? And here they are. They are now reaping not the benefit, they're reaping the issues with trying to potentially be invincible. Why? Because they are showing complete unprofessionalism to their players. Now, keep in mind, too, right? We've said this over and over and over again. Do we remember what happened with Nate Schmidt? Nate Schmidt had absolute, and also Marc-Andre Fleury, too. Marc-Andre Fleury learned about his trade via Twitter because Vegas had because they needed Jack Eichel. They needed Jack Eichel, and they also needed Max Pacioretty. They also needed to get Alex Pietrangelo. They needed to trade for Alec Martinez. Why? Try and build. But guess what? What does Bill Foley want? He wants to win, right? So they get all these shiny new toys, and now karma is coming back to bite them in the rear end. That's exactly what's happening. And the shiny toys is exactly what DB had told us. They think that they can do as much as they can, try and get under the cap. They'll finagle it in terms of getting the guys from long-term injured reserve, like how they are in Shea Weber. Now they're able to capitalize with Robin Leonard on long-term injured reserve. Well, guess what? Now they say, oh, guess what? We have now about, maybe $5 or $6 million. We still have about, $5-6 million in cap space. Well, guess what? You don't have a goaltender now. That's the problem. Now you're going to have to rely on Adin Hill, and you're going to have to rely on Thompson.
Yeah.
You've got problems.
That team is in trouble.
They're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to Andrew's point here. I'm sorry to interrupt you one more time, Tyler, about what with the Rangers, though. The Rangers will definitely benefit, but they'll be benefiting at a cost because can they get to 25-26 with Lafreniere? Can they get there with Hedl? I don't know because they still have these guys to re-sign, and they're going to command money. If the Rangers perform well, and especially Philip Hedl, he's going to command a little bit more than what he's making. And the Rangers don't have that. Granted, they do have about $3.5 million in dead cap now. That'll come off, right? But the problem, though, when looking at their cap situation, too, and I know Tyler said this, me and Tyler said this on our first episode of the Primetime Rundown together when we were sitting right here in this basement. Now, this is not Islanders bias, but I said this. In 5 years, Now we're at 4 years. The conversation of Artemi Panarin's $11 million contract will come into question. Oh, should we have signed this? Should we have signed him? Should we have dangled that blank check in front of him? Granted of what his fiance or girlfriend wanted to do. Now, the Rangers are in deep doo-doo in next year because of their depth, and now they just signed Trocheck to that $5.625 deal. They're going to benefit, but at what cost? Because their depth is going to take a hit before 25, 26 because they can't afford all these guys.
Mm-hmm. No, you're 100% correct.
That's the problem.
Without a doubt correct.
So it's hard to, it's almost, I shouldn't say hard. It's tough to question the value of the Artemi Panarin contract. He has been a very stable, consistent performer through the regular season. Obviously, this past spring/summer was his first real chance to showcase what he could do in the playoffs for the Rangers, and it wasn't a ton, if we're going to be totally honest. So when you question the long-term value of the contract, you can absolutely go back to 2017, 18. Go back to that video and
19.
19. Wow. 19. It's really, I thought it was much. I thought it was much farther in the rear view than that. We're getting old.
Yeah.
It's definitely a questionable contract. Now, when you look at a lot of the Ranger salaries, Ranger contracts coming up, this salary cap increase is really coming 2 years too late for the New York Rangers. You have, after the season, you're going to have Philip Hedl, Ryan Reeves, Sammy Blais, Alexis Lafreniere, a lot of guys that are going to be looking, they're going to need money this year. Rangers currently with literally just over $1 million in cap space. Was signing Trocheck really the smartest move, knowing what you're going to have to dish out this offseason, Andrew?
I think it fills a very big need, and what I assume they're going to try and do, what I would do if I was playing be a GM mode on NHL, would be sign these guys, sign, as long as they'll agree to it, obviously, sign the guys like Lafreniere and Hedl to 2 or 3 year bridge deals, get to the salary cap extension, get there, and then give them their big bag. Should they still be there?
Glad to see you keeping the salary cap on.
Always.
Yeah, it's just, this is one of those teams I think it could really be hit or miss. I think, obviously, as we know, half of it's going to come down to the player's hand, whether they want to stay or go. I can't see any of these players leaving the Rangers. Their futures are way too bright, and these careers are way too young to abandon, jump ship, and take that risk. The other half is going to obviously dictate what the Rangers are able to give them. And despite talent, obviously Alexis Lafreniere is not a 40-goal scorer at the moment. First-round draft pick usually comes with a nice check after his entry-level deal. That's arguably your priority. Now that you have Zibanejad, Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, and probably the most important, Adam Fox, locked for quite some time. Lafreniere, to me, without question, is the next man up that needs to be paid attention to.
Absolutely, especially if he's going to have a year like I think he's going to have.
And right behind him, if you want, again, my next honest opinion, him and K'Andre Miller.
Yeah, 100%.
As much as I probably will get some backlash from friends watching this, Philip Hedl probably goes in the rear view until those two are taken care of. In all honesty, most of this list goes in the rear view until Lafreniere and Miller are taken care of. The only person on here I could see being taken care of before those two would be Ryan Reeves, and just because of the fact it would be absolutely horrifying to see him in the division not on your team. Believe me, I know this is the second time I'm doing it. With that being said, one last team with, I believe, an immense benefit in this potential salary cap raise, none other than the Edmonton Oilers. I think that goes without saying. We talk about contract coming back to burn teams. the combined $21 million between Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl has done nothing but probably pull in about $1 billion since they both got here. For the Edmonton Oilers, definitely worth the investment. However, with that salary cap going up, talking currently again about a team going into the season $7.5 million over the cap, what rational free agent says no to playing with Connor McDavid? That having that free money available in 25-26 is going to be, hopefully for the Edmonton Oilers, tremendous. That will be the age 28 and 29 seasons for both McDavid and Draisaitl. A lot of people say Connor McDavid, terrifyingly enough, has not even entered his prime yet, so imagine in 3 years from now. Agree? Disagree? Edmonton's going to be a little terrifying with some money?
Yeah. I don't know how they can't
they're
be.
terrifying without money, so...
I think they're terrifying. I think they're terrifying right now.
That's what I mean. You get a free agent that is arguably going to make them even better, which I don't even know if it's possible at this point. It just makes things... The West becomes even scarier, as if it's already not scary. Looking ahead to 2025 for some unexplainable reason, because if you tune into our show, Joe, I know you do, we love to go off on tangents and look at things that absolutely mean nothing to us.
Correct.
Sure enough, we talk about the Maple Leafs not being able to retain players and having to dish out too much money. The Edmonton Oilers are going to come into some money in 25. Mitch Marner is going to be available in 2025.
Stop.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I don't know. If that's the case, right? Now, does Ken Holland want to show his cards like how Pierre Dorion has showed, right? I don't know. And again, I'm not calling the Edmonton Oilers a retooling type team because they've been trying to rebuild and retool since they won the Stanley Cup, right? And that was before we were all born, right? So the problem that I have here with that is that I think Edmonton's going to come into a lot of good money, right? Now, Mitch Marner, granted, he'll be available and whatnot, right? But just like every other team, right? Everyone needs center depth, right? And they've got it, right? They do have it. But in 25-26, right, you're going to look and say to yourself, all right, they're going to need more. They're going to need more, right? Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, we'll see how long he can go, right? Because he's now kind of converted over to the wing. And really, how much center depth do they really have? They tried the Kyle Turris deal that absolutely blew up in their face. And now, keep in mind, really, they're going to have to go and look down the middle before they go over to wings because they've got the wings. They've got them. And now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Edmonton might just be one of the deepest defensive teams in the league now. I can't believe we've come to that. We've come to that conclusion. It's absolutely amazing, almost a 180 for what you see what Ken Holland has done. And now when they've got money, well, first off, you're also going to see, as you brought up about $15-16 million with Austin Matthews, right? I think you're also going to see come, let's see, when does he go? 25-26 also. Oh, boy. I don't know now if the cap goes up, McDavid might just be the first $20 million player.
I was just about to say that. I agree completely.
He might just be the first $20 million player, and that could alter plans. That could alter plans. But they will have a lot of the – I hate calling hockey players or really athletes in general get the garbage out, but they're going to have a lot of the garbage out in the next 2 years. That's why I'm so scared of the Oilers in 2 years. Even now, I'm scared of them because of the way that they're constructed. Wait 2 years, and they're gonna be a powerhouse.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Connor McDavid's contract actually expires in 26-27. However, he's eligible to begin extension talks in 25-26. You're talking about a guy who's going to be paid in countries instead of money because I don't think there's enough money to give him anymore. Looking at the 2025 free agents for the Oilers, it's favorably for them. It's not too deep between Carter Savoy, Cody Ceci, and some kid named Leon Draisaitl. Seems like he might have a bright future. But, thinking about that, age 29 year, you still get 5 or 6 very, very, very good years out of Leon Draisaitl and an $8.5 million cap hit now, that's another price that's going to go up. You're talking about a guy who's, dare I say, can command 12, 13, potentially even more. You're talking about a guy who's easily, you can make him a Hart finalist every year with his 120 points. I know you want to argue it. Just do it.
Me or Andrew?
You. I saw the shake.
No. Well, what I was going to say is that, now that we continue to hear about a lot of these, these inflated salaries, I want to kind of piggyback by what you were saying, or kind of what you had asked Andrew about which teams are going to benefit. And I don't want to speed things up here, but I'll kind of chime in here and just say that no teams are going to benefit. You know why? Because every single salary will now be inflated. Every single one. So now that's going to make a lot of these contracts, right? They're going to go up, right? They're going to go way up. Everything is going to be inflated, and you're going to see a lot of movement. I think you're going to see a ton of movement. Yeah, sure. Some teams may benefit, right? But there is going to be that one player that could potentially, now the new $2 million might just be $5 million. You know what I'm saying? And now that could throw something off too. That could potentially throw something off. And now I think what we're going to see is a full reset. All 32 teams, they're going to go through a full reset of how they're going to manage the cap. Because when it goes up $1 to $2 million, that's easy. When it goes up 10 to 15, let's just say, in the next few years, boy, I tell you, listen, thank God I'm not a mathematician, because if I had a job as a general manager, and I'm not talking about on NHL, I'm talking about a legitimate job in the general manager's role, I'd be fired in about 10 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, look, no question. I mean, I believe, you assume that all 32 teams are going to have pros and cons coming out of this. I believe it's safe to say, look, teams like, I hate to rag on them because I just feel bad for them at this point, but teams like Arizona, your basement dweller teams are going to continue to basement dwell. So when the time comes, when all those teams are looking to get even more money, they're going to absorb on their existing cap to take the garbage.
Correct.
If this was a couple of years ago, you'd be talking about teams like Detroit, like your Ottawas. The current state of Philadelphia might be one of those dumpster teams right now where players are going to go to vanish. And I'll be honest with you, I know you're doing your head shake, which I so graciously appreciate, because it makes for great conversation, because I'm going to call you on it every time.
I can't wait for the Calgary talk then. Cannot wait for Andrew to hear the Calgary talk.
I'm going to be quite honest. I mean, you think there's no possible shot that team is going to get any better while Tortorella's in charge. He killed a man last week, as we showed. I'm trying to rationalize a good Philadelphia team with him in charge, and it's kind of like putting mayonnaise on a hot dog. It's not going to work.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
Let's agree that money is good. Thank you. We got some predictions to run through. Pretty much we're going to run through it. Atlantic, Metro, Central, Pacific divisions. Each one of myself, Joe, and Andrew have predicted the standings for each division with our wild card predictions. And we're going to probably just yell at each other and call each other dumb. Let's start with the Atlantic Division. I think it's safe to say that we all kind of agree that Tampa Bay still runs the show around the Atlantic. Joe, you're not giving Detroit much credit here, putting them out of the playoff picture and not putting any teams outside the top three in a wild card picture. Your thoughts on Ottawa still not being ready for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think what we saw with Ottawa, again, they're not ready for the playoffs yet. Granted, they did make some solid moves I still think that they're about another year away. I think that what we got a chance to see with Tim Stützle, what we saw with Josh Norris, now we're going to have Claude Giroux coming in, Alex DeBrincat coming in, sure, but I'm still very, very concerned about their blue line as well. Thomas Chabot is oft injured, and that's the problem, I think, with that too. They need someone that is going to anchor that blue line, and Nikita Zaitsev is not that guy. They're obviously looking to get Jake Sanderson and Eric Brandstrom going, but they're still young. They're 20 and 23 respectively, and the problem that I have here with Ottawa is that they also don't really have a solid goaltender in net either. Granted, they do have Cam Talbot. They also have Anton Forsberg as well. Those two guys, I don't expect them to be, this dominant powerhouse that a lot of teams are really, or a lot of media folks rather, are trying to say that this Ottawa team is ready to take the next level. I think that they are, but I think a lot slower than what people are thinking. I really do not believe that Ottawa will be in the 4 spot. That's just me, and I'm not throwing any shade at Andrew. I just don't see it yet. They're still a young team. And again, keep in mind too, as Tyler knows too, Islanders legendary head coach Jack Capuano is the associate head coach. This is a team that is destined for, I think like a 5th place finish. I really don't see it. I think that they're going to take great steps, but they're not there yet.
I can definitely agree that they do need some work outside of their top 6 forwards.
Oh, yeah.
And off of their top defensive pairing. I'm just not willing to say they're going to be totally out of it. Although I did rank them with you, I believe that they're going to be one of those teams that's going to be in it till the last day, and they're going to miss by a point or two. I think Ottawa has made significant strides. I believe they are definitely trending in the right direction.
Right.
You also seem to believe that the departures of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar for the Florida Panthers are not going to really impact them a terrible amount.
Yeah, I think that Florida has a great core. I think that what we got a chance to see with that trade, I don't want to say that it's going to be karma coming back to bite them, but just by looking at what Florida has, they've got so much talent. They've got a ridiculous amount of talent. I still think Carter Verhaeghe is an absolute diamond in the rough that they just scooped up out of nowhere from Tampa. They got Sam Bennett as well last year. And keep in mind, too, for a lot of folks that do not know, they still have Anton Lundell, who's on that entry-level contract. He's going to be a big deal for them down the middle. And then also keep in mind, too, someone that was bought out, oddly enough, by Ottawa was Colin White, who Colin White had a massive deal with Ottawa that Pierre Dorion kind of said, oops, I screwed up. Let's buy him out. So we'll do that now. And Ottawa took a flyer on him. Florida took a flyer on him. And I think that this is going to absolutely pay off for them too. I feel like they've got a good amount of depth. I think Ekblad is going to be right back and healthy. And something else too that I know a lot of folks will not like to hear, but oddly enough, Ratko Gudas, I feel like he's got a home down there. He feels good in that third D-line pairing. I think the substitution or the subtraction rather of Mackenzie Weegar is definitely tough. But again, you've got Tkachuk though. I still feel that they are this regular season top heavy team. Once they get to the playoffs, I rank them in number 8 out of all the teams.
Now, I do agree that they are definitely a regular season juggernaut. I mean, it's not often you see teams that go out and regularly are putting up 5-6 goals a night. The only other team that's probably doing that happens to also be in this division in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Mm-hmm. Now, Andrew, you and I have very similar lists with the exception of Ottawa and Florida. What's your thoughts on Detroit? In your list and both mine and mine as well, they're both taking significant jumps up. I think, in my opinion, they did a lot this offseason to improve as far as signings go. I also believe that a big part of their previous season's success last year was Mo Seider. And you know that I harp on that very heavily.
Yeah.
I believe Detroit is able to take that next step into the playoffs. And remember last year, they only missed by about 5 points, 6 points.
Yeah.
They're right in there,
missed
and
by
I
much.
think they have the capability to jump.
And they only improved. And the biggest thing about me moving them up into that 3 spot is that I consider every other team in that division, Florida, Boston, they took steps down, in my opinion. So Detroit has now leaped them. Upgrade in goaltending. You get, I think, a huge piece of this is Andrew Kopp once he is healthy. That's a nice piece in the middle. I wish he would have stayed with the Rangers.
So as we move into the Metropolitan Division, Andrew, you and I have the exact same standings.
Okay.
Now, Joe, you seem to believe that the ancient relic Pittsburgh Penguins roster is capable of finishing above the previous, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, 52 win New York Rangers, the 40-plus win Washington Capitals. Us three could beat the Devils, Columbus, or Philadelphia in a street hockey game. But point being, pretty bold decision to put them above the Capitals and the Rangers. What is the thought process here?
I think. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Pittsburgh simply doesn't die. Simply does not die. And I know that all of us here that are both Islanders and Rangers fans respectively, they just want Pittsburgh to go. But I simply am not. I'm not off of their train yet. I'm not. And for what Pittsburgh continues to do, every single night they come in and they perform every single night. Granted, there are a few where they fall flat on their face, but Pittsburgh, I think the problem with the Rangers here, right? And I just want to move over here with the Rangers is that their center depth took a massive hit. Center depth is a key issue for the Rangers. It has been for a while, but they do have that first-round pick from Dallas that they will be dangling in the trade deadline, which is March 3rd of 2023. So they'll probably improve over there. But in terms of Pittsburgh, though, they can, and I don't want to say that they got better. I think that their depth got better. They continue to be powerful from 1 to 12 all the way down. Rickard Rakell, they've got a full season of him. Jason Zucker, I don't know what's going to happen to him, but if he could be healthy on the wing, that's definitely someone else that they could put in there. Danton Heinen as well. He's looking for another bounce back year, trying to get maybe a $3 million payday after this year. And then you look at the back line. I'm in my soccer mode. Sorry. You're looking at the blue line here. And you say to yourself, Jeff Petrie, he's another one that is out for blood. He wants to prove something. And we know from his time in Montreal, he did not sign that massive contract in Montreal to get traded. He now wants to prove that he is someone crucial that can help a team win the Stanley Cup. He couldn't do it in Montreal. And I don't want to say that this team can get to the Cup final. I'm going to tell you, though, that they can definitely host the Rangers in the first round of the playoffs as the 2 seed for sure. And to go back to what you were saying with Washington, yes, I don't believe that they're going to die, but they are definitely going to regress. Keep in mind, they do not have Nicholas Backstrom for a little bit. He claims he's healthy, but or he's getting better. He's working his way back, but they feel like they're gonna have him in the second half of the season. And then you look all across the other way. I think another big flop in a trade was Anthony Mantha too. That they had Jacob Vrana for a while. That they went 1-for-1 with Detroit. That was an absolute bomb of a deal. They've got him at $5.2 million. They don't have a lot of room. And also, who's going to be their goalie? Sure, Darcy Kemper, Charlie Lindgren. I'm not sold on those two. I'm not sold on Kemper. Listen, what we saw last year in the with the Stanley Cup. Again, Pavel Francouz was one of the biggest reasons why Colorado won the Cup. Not saying Darcy Kemper did not put his 2 cents in there, but it was a lot more on the other guy. That's where I stand with those two.
Well, I do agree with you in the sense of Darcy Kemper is probably not the end-all, be-all for Washington in the sense of he's not going to be – I don't think he's going to help them skyrocket to the top. I mean, look, if you both know I am a goalie myself, and if I had Cale Makar and Devon Tays playing in front of me every night, I would probably win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Not likely. I can dream. Andrew, you on this list are the only team that did not give the Islanders any wild card credit. What's the deal? And I know where you live. Choose your words wisely.
Honestly, it's pretty much because I have 4, 5, 6 here: the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey, and also Ottawa and Florida on the other end, within 5, 6 points of each other. I mean, it's going to be an absolute gauntlet.
So
I'm just giving, I'm just
I'll
giving
live with that.
the younger teams a little bit of an edge going down the stretch.
You give the younger teams an edge down the stretch by putting
I
Pittsburgh behind
agree.
the Islanders?
I agree with Andrew here. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm an Islanders fan myself. And listen, again, I know it's preseason, but they looked slow. They looked slow.
So one of my things with the Islanders, and obviously I have repeated this to you guys ad nauseum, the Islander roster that's going to go into the opening night this year, more than likely is going to be almost identical, with the exception of maybe 2 players, to the teams that brought them to a conference final appearance and a semifinal appearance. Can they do it again with this roster? Of course. Will they? Probably not, because I'm not going to get into it, because this will turn into a 4-hour show. Another summer where, Joe, you will agree with me, no goal scorer was brought in. They plan on growing everything homegrown again. We know how well that works out. Although this time around, I'm not entirely ready to knock it. Lane Lambert, not like Barry Trotz, is willing to play the kids. With players like Aturati actually becoming a heavy favorite to make the team out of camp. Obviously, we see where Aturati is capable of at the World Juniors. If he can translate to the NHL seamlessly and very smooth, he's going to be a very, very good player. Not only for the Islanders, but he will be a good player for the league generally. It's hard for me, obviously, with my bias, to rule them out of the wild card just based off of last year having every possible odd thrown in their face. But I could absolutely see the argument where those 2 wildcard spots could go between any of those bottom 10 teams between the Atlantic and the Metro divisions. Moving to the Central Division, kind of none of us have the same stuff. Obviously, we all have Colorado at 1. Joe and Andrew, you guys share your love for St. Louis in the 2 spot. Andrew, I'm actually surprised you didn't put Dallas lower on your list, seeing that if you can get the 11 pick out of Dallas, that would be an absolute win. Anything lower, you're going to wait a bit. Do we all really think Winnipeg is going to be this bad?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, I could see it.
It's a cultural nightmare.
I'm going to try to argue it. I really, it's actually terrifying.
It's a nightmare. Like you said last week, the roster is not bad, but the morale is going to be in the dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, we obviously know that the talent on the Winnipeg Jets is not lacking. It is the morale and the leadership. It's gone.
Yep.
Literally gone.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
They stripped the captaincy from Blake Wheeler. That's how low it has gone.
Yeah. And obviously, we both see Nashville. Well, you guys at least see Nashville as wild card teams. I'm putting them in the playoffs outright. I don't think St. Louis did enough this offseason to keep up. The only question mark I would believe surrounds a team like Nashville is probably their goaltending and just the overall health of UC Saros. Obviously, we saw last year losing him was detrimental. Granted, they were probably going to lose to Colorado in the first round anyway. It almost makes you wonder how much closer that series could have been had he played.
Probably very. He's, for me, a top 5 goalie in the league.
Arizona is so low, they are actually the first NHL team over the Mexican-American border. That's how low in the standings they are. Chicago, I feel like that's another one of those teams, even though we all rank them in that 6 to 7 window, they could be good. I'm not saying they will be. They have a possibility. Joe, you put Minnesota pretty low on here. I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. Minnesota is a dumpster fire of their own. Now, granted, they did have a fantastic year last year, right? But the problem though is that again, we look at their cap issues, right? Do we remember when they bought out Parise and Suter? Right. 24-25 is their magic year that everything will go away. $12.743 million on dead cap that they've got now. Minnesota has no room to do anything. They've got $5 million to work with now. They've got Kirill Kaprizov at $9 million. Thank goodness they were able to get him back here from Russia. Keep that in mind, because if not, they would have had extreme issues. And then they were literally strapped down like this in terms of money, in terms of their cap issues. They also now they're going to have Matt Dumba too, who's on his final year of a contract that they're not going to be able to do anything with. So they lost some. They couldn't retain guys. And you want to talk about the team's morale that I think will go down? Listen, I'll be honest with you. Marc-Andre Fleury is getting older. You also look at what Jared Spurgeon brings. You look at what Kaprizov brings. Zuccarello is not the same. Joel Eriksson Ek, sure, right down the middle. They don't have the same roster that they did last season. And I don't think that they're going to be good at all. I really don't think so. I wouldn't be surprised if they were even lower than 5.
I could see it.
Has a chance.
My issue, I don't know about you guys, I had a real big issue with the Central Division because you have Colorado, who is Colorado, and then you just have the rest.
Yeah.
It's like you get a steak put in front of you, and then you bite into it, and it's well done. Like, yeah, it's a steak, but like it's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 seed in the Central Division really might as well be the 1 seed. The 1 seed is already locked. You know who it's going to be. Barring drastic injuries and circumstance, Colorado, there is no way Colorado doesn't finish at the top of this division.
No, I mean, when you look at 2 through 6, there's not much of a difference.
No, there's really not. And, you know, Andrew, if you refer back to some episodes of the Sunday Sauce earlier in the year, this was one of the hardest divisions to look at because every team from the 6th spot to the 3 spot, there was a month and a half window between January and about mid-February. It was a revolving door. It was somebody new in that number 3 spot every day.
Yeah, I mean, you're one injury or one hot streak away from these teams flip-flopping 4 spots. You have if Nashville, if Saros gets hurt, they plummet. If in Dallas, if they can score, they're all the way up to 2. Like it.
And they're going to get a deal done with Robertson.
Absolutely.
They're going to get a deal done. And if they don't get a deal done, well, then I think that that's definitely going to propel the guys like a Sagan and like a Ben and like a Joe Pavelski to really start scoring. I wouldn't listen. That's why I've got them all the way at 3, because I think right now what we're seeing here, there's definitely a distraction with Robertson right now, and that's I think why we're seeing not many folks talking about Dallas, whatever. But the case also is that. And again, I'm not trying to talk about Nils Lundqvist here. I would not be surprised, guys, if he shows out in Dallas. I
completely agree.
Surprised. I think he's going to. And not only that, too, I think he's going to play a massive part in what they've got there. Jake Ottinger, he loves the Dallas Stars. He flat out said a few times that he doesn't envision himself anywhere except in green. Really? Okay, I had no idea that Dallas was your was your end all or all. I always get that mixed up, but you know what I'm trying to say.
End all be all.
Thank you. Yeah, whatever it is. So it's just it's so tough to see with what's going on there. I don't know, and also just to go back to my last point with Minnesota being down too, the player that I forgot that they traded away was Kevin Fiala. Duh. That's a big loss, Kevin Fiala.
Yeah. Yep.
So I before we move to the Pacific Division, I want to touch back on Minnesota very quickly. I compare Minnesota, I believe they are, you can almost call them the Toronto Maple Leafs of the second round, as in they are a top 3 team through the Central for the last few years, and they just have an absolute collapse once they get to that second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's every year. You hear Minnesota and they look like a great team on paper, and it's the state of hockey, and then it just falls flat.
Yeah, it's the state of nonsense. Anyway, Joe, I know you've been looking forward to this division. And I've been looking forward to it too, because you're going to throw a bet in my face, and I am going to throw, why in the hell did you put Seattle as a 4 seed?
So what would you like? So what would you like to start with? You tell me. You're the host of this one. Go ahead.
Start with the bet, because clearly I'm eating my own words on that with my prediction.
Okay. So Andrew, I need to just tell the story here, if you don't mind. So Andrew, I don't know if you know or if Tyler told you. So both and let's have all of us on the screen here. Here we go, because Andrew needs to definitely have some popcorn while I tell this. So Tyler and I, we had a little bit of a friendly bet, right? It was only $10, right? We got a chance to talk about Calgary, right? And after they lost Johnny Gaudreau, after they traded away Matthew Tkachuk, that Tyler thought that
Don't forget Sean Monahan.
Right, and they also traded away Sean Monahan for nothing, but it doesn't matter because on the injured reserve anyway, he was a non-factor. Tyler believed that this team, this Calgary Flames team, who, mind you, had the best top line in the entire National Hockey League at one point, okay, now just keep that in mind too, will not surpass 75 points this season.
Listen to me. That this bet was made well before trades, well before Huberdeau, well
not even
before
close.
Weegar. Yes,
not
it
even
was.
close.
I
not
will
even
pull
close.
up receipts on you.
Not even close. Hold on. I'm gonna have to find this. I'm definitely gonna have to find this. And
I'm pulling up receipts.
For some odd reason, hold on. We're definitely going to find this here. But Andrew,
it's not a lot of points, right?
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because when I heard that, we actually brought it up. We actually brought it up with Rogers Sportsnet's Eric Francis, the main guy who covers the Flames, and he actually had a fantastic laugh while sipping a beer on our show, and he says, whoever that guy is, I'd love to have whatever drugs he's having, flat out on air. And I'd love to say it right to Tyler too, because I couldn't believe when he said that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, come on. This team. Here we go. Calgary. This is me saying Calgary will compete next year. Tyler says not a chance. This is July 22nd. So now July 22nd. Let us get when the trade happened for Tkachuk. Hold on one second. Let's get this in here. Now we had that. Hold on. Let's see. Calgary Flames. Here we are.
Okay, July 22nd. Find out when the Huberdeau trade was.
Right. That's exactly what I said. So Matthew Tkachuk. Hold on. Here we go. Oh, here we go. On July 22nd was when the trade went down. And oddly, this was down. You and I spoke about this. So Calgary will compete next year. Tyler says, Andrew, not a chance. I reply, team still has a lot of good pieces. Yes, they will. Full year of Monahan, and they'll compete. Didn't say they'll be good. I said they'll compete. Now keep that word in mind, Andrew. I said they'll compete.
Got it.
Tyler says, care to put money on it? I said gladly. $10. Great. They'll have 80 points. Now this is verbatim. You'll owe me $10 when they finish 7th.
Listen,
dude, 7th.
I've got it right here.
Okay. You want to play this game?
Let's do it. Here we go.
Listen,
7th.
This was before any trades for Huberdeau or the Kadri signing were made. Let me ask you something. Look at this article right here. When was this article written?
When was he
I
traded?
don't care about you. Here.
That means nothing. That means it was done 3 days after.
This was before they got good overnight.
No, it was not. No, it was not. He was traded on the 22nd. He was traded on the 22nd, and as you well know, you and I break the news to each other on the exact same day. And you can't deny that.
I'm going to cat friendly.
It was absolutely on the 22nd because the NHL article is the 23rd.
You sit on a burn of lies.
So now I'm going to throw this at Andrew. What do you think about this?
Dude, listen, 7th place. Jacob Markstrom would drag this team over 5 of those teams if need be. They don't need anybody else. He can do it by himself. This, much like the Central Division, is another division of meh.
All right, Chief. Let me ask you something. What's worse? This question for Andrew. What's worse? Saying that Calgary's going to finish with less than 75 points or putting an octopus in 4th place?
Dude, there's no way Calgary finishes with less than 75 points. Come on, dude. Come on.
You're telling me that Seattle has a better chance of not only being 4th in the Pacific, a wild card. They have a better chance of doing that than Calgary has finishing 7th.
Yes.
You have a $10 bet, my friend.
I think that Seattle does have a chance to do it. There's no way Calgary, and with Jacob Markstrom in net, has less than 75 points. It's not possible.
Well, now keep in mind, I will say this though, right? Now, this was done before Nazem Kadri made his signing. But hold on. No. But hold on a second, right? But Tyler, though, he was very adamant that once Calgary made the trade, that they wouldn't even compete. Even if they did not get Kadri. They still have now, they shored up their blue line, and they got one of the best wingers in the league. Granted, Huberdeau is not as bulky or as physical as Tkachuk. He's still going to score 100 points.
Yeah.
Listen,
it's
you guys are mean. I don't appreciate this, but I understand.
Also, Huberdeau's going to a worse division. He's going to throw up like 300 points this year. I'm just calling.
That's very fair.
Tyler wants to move away from this so fast. Not even funny.
Look, it was a bad idea. I was angry. I'm still pretty angry. Just leave me alone. But I do have to ask, in a serious note.
Oh boy.
How is Seattle making quite such a jump this season?
Okay, so this is the part where I believe that Seattle will make the jump. So Seattle has a year to get things to get everything out of the way. All of the spotlight is, I don't want to say it's off of them, but the spotlight has now dimmed. Okay, now we're looking at other teams in the West, right? Now we're looking at Los Angeles. Now we're looking at Edmonton. Now we're looking at Calgary now. Now, keep in mind, despite them losing Gaudreau and Tkachuk, the spotlight remains on them because they still need a new arena, and they're also getting guys like Huberdeau, and almost guaranteed Mackenzie Weegar is going to sign a massive extension with them, right? So now all of this drama about Calgary not being a place they don't want to play in, well, I think those two guys are absolutely defying all of that talk, and they're going to put Calgary in the mix for the Pacific Division. Now, the reason why I bring up how Seattle can quietly move up is because of what they've got, okay? Now, the reason why I say about what they've got is, Tyler, do we remember when Oliver Bjorkstrand was traded for practically nothing for a pair of second-round picks? Oliver Bjorkstrand was an absolute force to be reckoned with out in Columbus. Quietly, though. Quietly. In Columbus, last season, he put up 57 points, which was a career year, and he slowly got better. Every year, he's getting better. And what happened? Jarmo Kekalainen, the general manager for the Columbus Blue Jackets, did not want to trade him within the division. So they had to ship him out. And, and there were talks that potentially the Islanders may be involved in them or whatever the case may be. And they got 2 second-round draft picks for him. 2. So you fit him in now with the potential of Shane Wright or potentially Matty Beniers, who is going to be a superstar in the making, both of those. And then you also have Wenberg. You also have Burakovsky. You've got a brand new year of Philip Grubauer as well. That's another thing too. And someone who's trying to revive his career is Justin Schultz too. God, I feel for that man. You've got him. You've got Ryan Donato coming in, Jonas Donskoy, a lot of players, and Yanni Gourde to a full season. This is a team that is destined to make a leap, and I think they're going to do it quietly. That's why I have them pegged at 4. I don't see them going any higher, but I see them being a 4/5. And that's why I think they're going to sneak in because, as Andrew said, just like the steak, you cut the Central Division, and it's meh, just below the other 3. That's why the Pacific Division, there's always that, no pun intended, wild card that can just sneak right in, and I think Seattle could do it.
Andrew, can we have a meeting real quick?
Oh, boy. Sure, buddy.
Joe, I'll be right back. When he says it like that, he's not completely wrong.
No, I mean, I support it. I can see that stuff happening. The reason I haven't been last is I don't think it will.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's.
But it could.
Point.
It absolutely could.
Got good point. Should we bring him back?
I think he's in.
Okay, so we kind of agree with you.
All those things absolutely can play out.
Yeah, look, I mean, Seattle definitely made a lot of the right decisions this past summer. Do I think it's enough to catapult them to a wild card? No, I really don't. I think that LA has gotten quietly very good in the last year or two. Honestly, Anaheim is, I don't think, much farther behind LA. Like we said, the 1-2 for at least Andrew and myself are a lock. LA, look, based off how they played last year, I would absolutely, if you told me that they were going to finish in the number 2 spot in the Pacific, I'd absolutely believe it. Shout out to the fantastic editor, who is moi, who did not change the wording. Andrew, you give a lot of props here to Vegas somehow, considering they might not even be able to legally and financially field a team on opening night.
Listen, it's one of those things. It's on paper. They look like a good team. I'm going to roll with it.
I mean, look, it's fair. On paper, they are a good team. However, on paper, they also have 9 high school goalies. And
so fair.
Sharks are the Sharks, which goes without.
Well, hold on a second. Now I'm going to put Tyler back on the spot here, right? And it's not going to be about Calgary, but Tyler, let's put up
Let me get comfortable.
Let's put up the Pacific Division because I think me and Andrew need to figure this out, right? Andrew, Tyler threw shade at me for Seattle. Look who he's got 4th and in the wild card. He's got Anaheim. Now, if you think to yourself that that Seattle is a team that has nobody, how about Anaheim? Is Trevor Zegras going to be the only player who could propel them into the 4? Can Ryan Strome and Frank Vetrano do this? What, are you kidding me? You're going to have a comment about Seattle and you're the one picking Anaheim here? Oh, buddy. My goodness. That is brutal. I'd love to hear your reaction to this or your reasoning why you have Anaheim in the 4th and getting a wild card nonetheless. There we go. and keep in mind too, John Klingberg won't even be considered for anything because he'll be trade bait come January 1. That's when that no trade clause goes away. It's a legitimate disaster out in Anaheim.
I personally, look, I believe the Ducks are similar to last year's Detroit Red Wings, are a team with incredible upside. They're trending in the right direction. They have a great youth group, a great youth movement moving forward with their team. Gibson is probably, on a good day, he's probably a top 5 goalie in the league. I don't think I think it's kind of hard to argue that. For the Ducks, it's going to be really, can they stay out of their own way? As far as injuries, as far as smart decision-making, and trying not to let players, such as Trevor Zegras, run a circus and just play hockey. believe a lot of the Ducks' success this year is dictated on staying out of their own way.
That's going to be tough, especially when you have Adam Henrique up there as well. And Jakob Silfverberg as well. You got a lot of guys there that are just old.
Yeah, I'm more shocked you have him over Vancouver.
I don't appreciate how mean you guys are.
All this slander.
Listen here,
right?
Calgary, 75 points.
All this ganged up slander on Tyler. God,
I guess you guys weren't taught that bullying is not nice.
Ah, yes. Say no to bullying, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, always say no to bullying. That's right. But say yes to milk.
God.
Vitamin D.
That's it.
You know, if the milk company decides to come after the Eastern Observer because we're making fun of them too much,
yeah, it'll be my problem and not yours. Thanks.
Yeah, have your people call my people so I can block your people's phone numbers.
Do you think they're going to have free milk night?
Free milk night?
You can sell milk in the arena now?
I believe you would have a very large group of angry Canadian people.
Well, let me tell you something. Now, I don't know if the two of you guys know this, or I know Tyler hasn't been to Canada, but Andrew, have you ever been to Canada?
Unfortunately not, no.
Okay, so in Canada, right, how we have like quarts of milk or anything along those lines, they don't have that, right? They have bags of milk.
I love that.
Bags of milk. So to kind of peg off of Tyler's point, imagine at the front entrance of Scotiabank Arena, and I'll tell you this because my cousins have lived up there and I've been there once a year all my life, and I'm 27, so I've seen it in all of their supermarkets, everything like that. Bags of milk, no such thing. Imagine in Scotiabank Arena they gave out a Ziploc bag of milk. Imagine.
You can't go to an arena and get a bottle cap. You think they're going to give out plastic weapons?
Hey, let me tell you something. In Canada, yes, you can. Absolutely. Listen,
bottle cap in Canada?
Yes, you can. In Canada, you could fill up your own gas before you pay.
Whoa. Andrew, get on your moose. We're going to Canada.
No, yeah. That brings up a whole different conversation.
What, the moose are going to Canada?
Yes.
Going to Canada and the paying after you pump.
Oh, that's just an open door for crime.
Yeah, well. In Canada, and listen, in Canada, everyone is very nice, which is why you can get the bottle caps and get whatever you want at Scotiabank Arena or wherever milk by promotion is given. And like I said, maybe that's exactly what's going on here.
Well, look, being in Canada, being nice, they know all about that. So
there you go.
Great job today, guys. We did great.
A+.
I'm going to go with A- because somebody here put the Kraken as a 4 seed.
Someone also said Calgary would have less than 75 points.
I'll tell you this one more thing before Tyler closes us out. 75 points is the magic number. 75 points.
Well, they have none now, so I'm in good shape. I'm gonna send an email now, actually, to Gary Batman and see if he can drop the point totals in the league to a half a point for a win.
That's it.
Negative 74 points for a loss.
That's it. There you go.
Joe, it's always a fun time when you're here.
Appreciate you having me on, fellas. It's been a ton of fun, and it should be a fun hockey season upcoming. A lot of unknowns throughout all 32 teams.
Andrew, I got to look at you every week, so you're nothing special.
Oh,
Joe, you have anything to add before we go?
No, I think we're good to go, and enjoy the start of hockey in about 10 days time. Devils, my goodness, Rangers Lightning on Tuesday, October 11th. I know I'll be in the caboose watching that one. It's going to be tons of fun to see Eastern Conference Final rematch, no doubt.
And looking on the Islanders' end. Islander fans don't have to wait much farther than Thursday the 13th with Florida. So we got about 10 days to the Rangers, about 12, 11 days until the Islanders.
Yeah, 10 days from now, I'll be in the Garden, baby.
Yeah, it's kind of like telling people you eat dinner in a porta potty. Primetime Rundown, Fridays. Essential Wrestling Podcast, Tuesdays. Milk every day. I'm Tyler Adelle. This is Andrew Mucaria, our special guest today from the Primetime Rundown, Joey Jarzynka. We could not thank you enough for being with us today. Milk, milk, milk. Have a fantastic Sunday and enjoy your week. We'll see you next week.